Awesome. So thanks everybody joining in. All right. Great. As you've heard that the topic of today's conversation is how do you ready your content to serve 50% of global searches. So anybody who's in the room who ever had a website, ever worked on building a website or a mobile app, or anybody who ever cared about getting or acquiring users from Google or any kind of other search engines, using content marketing or or building systems which relies on getting users from Google. That's this presentation is pretty important. um, Before we jump on to the conversation, I am available on Twitter at gmishra. You can reach me on LinkedIn. Just type gmishra.com and it will redirect to my LinkedIn ID. You can find this slides on bit.ly. Just go bit.ly/gmishra, and you can look at all the slides. The slides I actually have thrice the content that I'll present today in the slides. Wanted to keep it short, and happy to take on questions later on. But if you look at the slides, you will get much more content in terms of videos and other assets. So feel free to share and read the slides. So every time I start with a conversation, I start with some success stories. Usually people don't think that voice first is ready there yet, or it's not mainstream. So let's see what who others are benefiting from voice. So one of my big great examples, and a competition actually. So I work for Estee Lauder. L'Oreal is a competition for us all the time. And voice essentially is something that and you can look at the video later on with the slides. Voice is something that's really helping them from an SEO point of view, right? So they are actually implementing all kind of content strategies to get in more and more eyeballs from Google using voice, right? Erica, another example, Bank of America, which essentially works on both on the voice and the chatbots, right? They had like 6 million users in March 2019. I'm sure if anybody in the room is Bank of America user or client or customer, right? They must have came across Erica for sure. Another very interesting, and I'll talk more on how they have done this in the later part of the presentation, is New York Times, right? So New York Times, well, it's not pure voice, right? There's the whole concept of how do you get ranked in the voice search is something the whole base structure is something New York Times have been working on many years now, right? And that one big part of that is New York Times Cooking, which had recipes, right? And they have done a phenomenal job actually to become a vertical search engine for essentially recipes, and gets a lot of traffic and eyeballs on that. And we'll talk more on that how they did it. But with all these success stories all there, right? We all know, we have experienced Alexa, Google Home, Siri, and we all understand and agree that bots are frustrating, right? So no second thoughts on that. And there are another worries, right? That bots are gonna, or AI is gonna take people jobs, or NSA is listening to us, or government is listening to us. There is a wiretap, and there are other worries apart from the frustration that we have. But we will not worry about that today. We will not look at the dark side. We'll look at the bright side of the voice and see if this becomes as mainstream as a Google search, a text search is, which I'm pretty confident will become in the next 4 or 5 years. How do we essentially get prepared for that today, right? So we'll focus on that. Right. So some basics, right? On what is the difference, right? So why do we the whole content builders, or anybody who essentially build any applications or website, why they should worry, right? They're already doing it, the best practices out there, right? So there is a very basic difference on how a web-based content work versus how a conversational content work, right? Web-based content is extremely high verbose, right? There's screen based, right? You can actually look at visually, right? There's a lot of complex architecture from a hyperlink point of view, right? You can click on some place, go to other place. So there is a lot of relational information, right? On the basis of hyperlinks that you can maintain, right? And it's a pretty complex information architecture. You can actually look at a 2,000 word article and you don't even read, you probably will read 200 words out of it, but you will still get a gist of it, right? Very quickly, reading up and down. While on the conversational world, right, your content is extremely low verbose, right? You can't really have a 2,000 word, article being spoken on a voice word. Impossible. It would not work, right? There is a zero user interface, right? It's completely verbal or oral, right, interface, right? So you can't really go back, right? It's always it's always a unidirectional flow, right? So you can't really say, hey, I heard something like 3 minutes back. Now I understand on the basis of what I'm hearing of what it I heard 3 minutes back. Let me go back. No, you can't, right? It's always extremely unidirectional, right, and extremely one-directional flow, right? And what that means is that all the complex information architecture that we had, all the high verbosity or the freedom that we had to write thousands and thousands of words would just not mean anything here, right? So you would need extremely contextual content, right? So context also precedes the content in the case of voice word, right? That's a very, very basic piece of building any conversational UI or a very conversational content strategy in the conversational world. Some examples, right? This is from my dear friend Preston, right? He led this for Georgia Gov, and some real life examples, right? So Georgia Gov, when they implemented their FAQs over Alexa, right? For the residents of Georgia to essentially get the information, they realized that there are a lot of challenges, right? Blind spots that they had. So, for example, if you are on a employment benefit page, the question said, how long can I receive benefits? Right, and rather than saying how long can I receive employment benefits. Now, when you are on a page and when you're reading that, that okay, I am on an employment benefit page. So when the question comes is how long can I receive benefits, it would mean by default employment benefit, right? But when you're hearing the same message, you don't know, right? So you have to have the context of employment benefit in the question itself, right? Small change, but extremely useful when you are hearing the thing. Similarly, you have things like learn more about payments, right? So now when you read that, that there's a hyperlink and you can click and go somewhere, right? But what if you're hearing this, learn more about payments, and then it stops? You don't know where to learn what, right? And that's where a better way to essentially do that is to take that hyperlink, put that in the hyperlink into a place where it is contextual for the web. But while you're hearing that line, it makes totally sense for you as well, right? So small changes, but extremely important to understand what context means in the conversational world, right? From real life examples. One of the thumb rule that we follow with all the work that we do for our clients is to ensure that whatever we are trying to present, we are able to present in 7 seconds. That's actually a study that happened over the millennials and Gen Z, largely targeted on Gen Z, and it said that if you are not able to present the information in 7 seconds, they just lose the context, right? They just lose the whole idea of what's happening. So always make sure that whenever you are building any contextual information in terms of content, give the whole context, the whole information in 7 seconds, right? And build all the content strategy according to that, right? A quick example. You've seen the web search, right? So if you go at Google and just search YouTube SEO, you'll just see the normal, in behavior, right? You have videos, a knowledge graph, links coming in, right? Typical stuff, right? Now, if I do the same kind of search, right, and I say, how do I rank my YouTube videos, which is the same thing as YouTube SEO, right? You'll see that Google takes the first video, and say that, hey, in this 18 minutes video, just listen to this 83 seconds, which is contextual for you, right? So you see how context is also extremely important in a natural language search for Google, right? Which essentially leads to a voice search when you do the search over the voice, right? So whatever you are building is going to help you in the web as well today, but it's going to help you in the future in the voice world, So the whole idea, context is extremely important. One question that I always get is that hey, voice is not big today, right? What it doesn't matter that if I invest or not, but understand that if you are actually investing in voice content strategy today, you will also get ranked on featured snippets, which is what we call position 0 on Google, right? And if you are ranking there, you'll get tons of traffic from featured snippet, which is the first position in Google, and that you'll get the treated on the voice as well. So it's a win and win situation, right? It's a dual win situation. um, I'll not go deep on how do you do about such optimization. There's, again, you can look at the slides, or you can just literally Google and figure out how you can do a voice search optimization. There's a lot of information out there. But yes, if you actually try and optimize your content for featured snippet, you'll automatically do it for voice. If you optimize it for voice, you will automatically do it for featured snippet, right? Just do either of that, right, and you'll be good. And you can just go through all the information, right? And I do this every time I talk, right? So a lot of time, because we are a little blind spotted, right, we don't really realize how this is. But if you ask your Google Home today, when is Rasa Summit, it will actually give you the information, because the Rasa Summit dates are actually right there in the featured snippet, right? I just did this for a quick Google search before, like 15 minutes before the presentation, and it will give me, hey, the Rasa search is from February 8, 2021 to February 12, 2021, right? So you have that information in your hand, which will be on the voice and the featured snippet. So here's your a real life example, right? And it can do a lot of complex searches as well, right? So I was doing this talk at Florida Technical College, and so I just asked Google Home, hey, what is the average tuition fees at Florida Technical College? And it gave me a number of $29,838. And I asked the audience, what is the number? And it was pretty close. Somebody said 28,000, somebody said 29,000. So it was literally very, very close to what the real number was, right? So again, optimize for featured content, and you'll get optimized for voice, right? And it does a lot more complex searches today as well, right? Here is something that we're doing for Centrica. It's a big solar power organization in US, right? And we were looking to see what they are trying to get the results, and it's open information. So anybody can find out that from HRF or SEM Rush kind of tools, right? So they were actually ranking on something like what is an advantage to alternative energy technology, what are the advantage of solar technology, what is not advantage of using the pyramid of energy. Some very complex questions, but they were actually getting searches. People are actually getting landed on their websites, right? Now what the experience they will be getting if that answer is actually a 1,000-word article, right? So you have to ensure that what if the people are already coming to your website, and you can find that out using multiple tools out there, right? Make sure that the experience that they get from that is extremely contextual. Okay. Another low hanging fruit, right, is schema, right? Google a few months back, they announced that if you have schema.org schemas implemented on your website, they will automatically create a Google action out of it, right? So I'm sure that your competitions have been doing for many years now. If you're not, please go ahead and implement low hanging fruit schemas like news, recipes, podcast, how to, FAQ, right? These are some really gold mine schemas that if you're not implementing today, you're just losing tons and tons of business because of the Google search, right? So make sure that you are looking, and if you actually go into the schema.org and you try and spend a little time, you realize that 98% of the content usage, or the 98% of the content layout or content types that are you are implementing for your business are already out there. So there is some kind of a schema. So make sure you are adhering to that schema. You are breaking down your content into each schema items, because then Google can understand it very well, right? Because it's structured enough for Google to understand and present into searches, right? And when I was talking about New York Times earlier, in my initial slides, New York Times have actually been investing into ensuring that they have a very structured content for almost 6-7 years. They have a content type which range from 50 fields to 100 fields, right? Imagine, right? 50 fields to 100 fields for every content that they're writing, so that it actually can become a very well versed schema based content, so that Google can actually search them and index them and give them a better search result, right? So if you're not doing that today, it's already late. Please do it. Okay. in interest of time, again, as I said, right, I cut it down this talk into like 15, 17 minutes. So I'm just on the end of the talk. But there is tons of information right there on the slides. Go ahead, you can find that more, and feel free to ping me if you want to have a conversation. This is my passion topic, and I love to talk anytime on that. We are building something called Cane, which is a voice first learning management system. It's an open source learning management system that we're building. Like Rasa is building the whole conversational architecture. We're not still open yet. We're still trying to launch the beta version of it, right? And we'll make it open, as and code and everything. But it's a Drupal based LMS that we are building, right? And the idea is that right now the modern learner is totally overwhelmed and distracted, right? They have a lot of time going in meetings, emails, right? So you can't really do a lot of focused learning. So how do you essentially envision a world where it's a micro learning world where you can learn things quickly and using voice, right? What we are doing is, right, so you have a lot of textual information, right? So what we are doing is that we are processing and transcribing all that human speech, right, or whatever the text is into human speech, and then saying that, okay, in that questions, in that whole small big learning modules, what is that contextual content that you want to do, right? You want to do, and using NLP, using AI, we are transcribing and finding out that. And then what we are doing is that we are pulling that information, right, from search engine, from other places, and giving you a very contextual view of that content. And then you can essentially learn on the go. So if you are essentially talking to somebody and want to know about a question, you can literally ask the Cane assistant, and it will give you that particular part. So it's more of a pull based learning than a push based learning, right? Again, once it launches, it will be all over my Twitter and LinkedIn ID. So follow me and both of the places, and you'll get to know. Yeah, that's pretty much. Again, you can follow me on G Mishra at Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn at gmishra.com, and you can find the slides on bit.ly/gmishra.